So I've removed the drain plug and I allowed some of the fluid to drain, okay? And what you see here in the pan is really not a whole heck of a lot of anything here, just a little bit. That's all you're going to get. The reason for that is there's a fill tube inside the drain plug. You have to remove that fill tube if you want the rest of the fluid to come out. Gently insert your Allen wrench. It should slip right into place, and then just unscrew it the way you'd normally unscrew anything. And then that's going to bring this fill tube out. As the fill tube comes out, you're going to get some fluid, so be ready for that. You're going to get some fluid draining out. The fill tube, actually, what happens is it actually regulates how much fluid is in the pan. So as you're unscrewing it, you're lowering the tube, which is allowing more fluid to come out. This could be a long process or a short process, just depends on how messy you want to make it. But you want to gently remove that fill tube, be careful not to break it. It should only be plastic. I had removed some of the bolts holding the pan on, and some of the bolts are loose. You can see some space in here, but the rubber gasket was still holding the pan up against the housing, and so that needed a little bit of persuasion to let loose. So you can see where the screw goes in, where the bolt goes in here, and then there's a piece of suspension front end here mounting. It's actually a motor mount here, and I just got the screwdriver in there, apply a little bit of pressure downward on the housing just to pop that seal. Be careful, you don't want to get in here and start banging away in between the housing and the gasket, thinking you're getting in there. You don't want to damage the housing, so you don't want to have leaks in here. So careful, you don't want to damage the pan either. You don't want to bend it. So just a little persuasion, little downward pressure on that, and it popped free. Hopefully you're just as lucky. Okay, so the pan is off the transmission, and now you can see the transmission filter right here. Still some fluid dripping. This is all wet under here with fluid. It may drip from time to time, so just be aware of that. Don't get any in your mouth and your eyes and your nose. Be careful. There are a number of electrical components inside the transmission, so when you're removing that pan, be very careful you're not twisting it or making really too big movements with it. You don't want to cause any damage. You don't want to interfere with those electrical components. Additionally, you're going to see some old fluid in here. You may be tempted to want to wipe all this down. I'd caution you against that. If you do, be extremely careful. You don't want to get any contaminants in here whatsoever. Even the smallest piece of paper towel or cloth or something can cause you some major problems, so be very careful with that. Now we're going to remove the transmission filter, and to do that you're going to see 3 bolts holding it on. One here, one here, one in the back. Fortunately for you, those bolts are the same head size as the bolts on the pan. So take the same socket that you used on the pan and put it on here, and you're going to loosen those bolts and remove the transmission fluid filter. Now I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to let this continue to drip. I don't want the new filter in here just yet because I don't want contaminants that may blow up inside get inside the new filter. I'm going to go clean the pan first, and once the pan is cleaned and ready to be put back on, then I'll come back and I'll clean up the edges of the housing, and I'll remove and replace the filter. Okay, this is the transmission pan. You can see the gasket still attached to it. I'm going to remove that. It's just a rubber gasket, and I'll remove that whole thing. Only goes on one way, so you're not going to have a problem with that. My new gasket has the spacers, so I don't have to worry about removing these spacers and putting them in the new gasket. I'm going to clean this up really good on the inside, get anything and everything out of here. Now, in these pans, they put magnets in the bottom, okay? And you're going to take these magnets out and clean them. These are, oh my God, these are just caked with goo, okay? Well, the reason these magnets are here is to protect the transmission. any metal debris that may be created in the wear of the parts inside the transmission as it floats to the bottom of the pan. These magnets collected. Keeps the metal debris from going back up into the transmission and recycling. Helps prolong the life of the transmission. There's going to be metal wear on anything that is metal on metal, and lots of moving parts in the transmission. So these are removable. I'm going to clean up this pan. I'm going to take these magnets right out. Just take it right out, just like that. Clean it up. Once everything is good and clean, put them right back where you found them, and you're ready to put it back together. This is the pan for the transmission fluid, and I wiped it out and it came clean really easy, so I opted to not use any kind of cleaner in it to err on the side of caution. So I wiped it out really well, made sure that the debris was out, made sure there were no particles left behind from the shop towels. The old gasket I had peeled off. You just peel that right off. I put the new one on already, and you can see I've cleaned up the magnets and I've put the magnets back in place in the bottom of the pan. Do not forget to put the magnets back in the bottom of the pan. That will prolong the life of your transmission. I'll put the transmission pan back on. You can see the new bolts are in. New gasket is on. We've tightened it all the way around. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the fill level indicator. I'm sure there's some technical name for this, but to err on the side of caution, I didn't want this in the pan while I was putting the pan onto the housing and over the transmission. I didn't want it to get caught in any wires or anything. So now I'm going to put this fill stick, whatever they call it, back in. You just put it up inside the drain plug and just spin it into place until it seats. It's just a piece of plastic, so you don't need to go too tight here. Just get it to seat and you're good. Alright, now I'll put the drain plug back in. Put the drain plug back in. This kit actually came with a new one, so it came with a new drain plug and a new washer. So I'm going to put the drain plug and the washer on. Once I get that on, I'll come over here to the fill hole and I will remove the fill screw, the fill plug here, and then I'll start to put some fluid in. Tricky part. The drain plug is not in. It's right here. The vehicle is running, emergency brake on and park, okay? And I've got the fill tube connected to the fill port on the transmission, okay? I showed you that earlier. So you have to bring the transmission fluid up to temperature. The vehicle should be running. You cycle it through the gears, park, reverse, neutral, drive, and then back again. And what you're going to do is you're going to continue putting fluid in until you see it start to come out the drain plug. Remember that plastic piece we put in? That regulates how much is supposed to be in the oil pan, in the transmission fluid pan. So you're going to continue to add fluid. Add it slowly. Maybe once or twice you could cycle through the gears again. When you're pushing fluid in and it's coming out the drain plug, that's when you're done. Put the drain plug in and you'll be done. Okay, so I have the transmission pan back on. I have the fill level indicator, the little stick that you saw, the little plastic piece, has been reinserted into the drain hole. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put fluid back into the unit. Now you cannot start the vehicle and remove it from the ramps with no fluid in it, so please do not do that. Okay. So we're still in the ramps. We're going to attach the hose. If you follow the directions that come with the pump, you'll see that one end is going to go into the bottle of automatic transmission fluid. The other end, you can get it to squeeze a little bit into the fill port on the fill hole. Okay. Now don't get too aggressive. You don't want pieces of plastic coming off, and don't shove lots of it into the hole. The transmission's in there and there's moving parts. So just get enough in there so it stays in. Okay. So you're going to start pumping fluid in. When the fluid starts to come out the drain hole, okay, So you want to have your catch pan under there because some fluid is going to come out your drain hole. Your drain plug is not in, okay? You probably get a quart, maybe 2 quarts in there, and then it will start coming out the drain hole. You're going to get in, you're going to have to start the vehicle, okay? When you start the vehicle, some of the fluid in the pan is going to get drawn up into the transmission. With the vehicle running, you're going to put more fluid into the pan. Now, when you're doing that, make sure you're not pumping too hard, because if you pump too hard, you're going to send it, across the pan. It's going to go right into that fill tube and down, and you're going to think that you've got enough in there. And in fact, you won't. So with the vehicle running, you're going to add a little more fluid. Give it a second, add a little more fluid. You're going to keep doing that until you see fluid again coming out the drain hole. When you get fluid coming out the drain hole again, get in the vehicle and cycle it through the gears. Go into reverse, go into neutral, go into drive, okay? And then cycle back the other way and put it into park. Go back and add more fluid, okay? After you're adding more fluid, when it starts to come out the drain hole again, okay, then you could put your drain plug in, okay? Don't tighten it down really hard, just get it in there to stop the fluid from coming out. That's good enough. Then you're going to remove your gear. You're going to remove your hose and your pump and all that. You're going to put the fill plug back in, okay? But it doesn't have to go in tight like you're done because you're not done yet. So put it back in, get your stuff out of the way. You're going to remove the vehicle from the ramps. Remove the vehicle from the ramps, get the ramps out of the way, get the vehicle in a stable location where you could get underneath because you still have work to do. Okay, so you've got the vehicle in a good place. What you're going to do is you're going to go back underneath, you're going to remove the fill, you're going to put the hose back in, you're going to put your catch pan under there, you're going to remove the drain plug, okay, and then you're going to start adding fluid again, okay, with the vehicle running. The vehicle has to be running for this to be the correct level. Add some fluid, wait a second, add some fluid, wait a second, till it starts to come out. When it starts to come out the drain, get back in and cycle through the gears again. Cycle through the gears, get back underneath, put a little fluid in. When it comes out the drain hole again, now you can put in your drain plug and then remove your pump and your ATF fluid and all that, put your fill plug back in and secure those because congratulations, you're finally done.